Hello everyone and welcome back. I am Mark Thompson and these are Alteryx tutorials. Today's session, and by the way, it feels good to be back. I've had a lot of things that have life hits you sometimes. So good to be back in front of you. Today's challenge is going to be weekly challenge number 243. And it's looking at populations of Latin American countries and the percentage of men and women in those countries. And we have 3 questions that we want to answer. What is the last year in which there were more men than women in a Latin American country? And which countries was it? Was it? In what year will the percentage of men in Latin American country reach the lowest point according to the data set? And is there any chance there will be more men than women in 2100? If so, in which Latin American country or countries? All right, let's go ahead and jump into it. We have a spreadsheet, and actually I won't bother to open it up, but there's a number of tabs, and the instructions in this are to use CAD01. And there are 3 tabs, CAD01, CAD011, and 012. And this is all of the data. This is the data for the men, and this is the data for the women. We go ahead and we treat them all the same. They're all formatted identical. And we stick on a formula tool here, and we simply create a new column, gender, and say all gender males in this one, and gender females in the third one. And then we go ahead and union them. And then you can see down below, this is what the data looks like. And when I click on here, you can see out to the end, there's now a column that has gender, all females, males, and we've got 63 records, right? And our years go from 1950 to 2100. So there's past as well as predictions for the future. Now, we need to get this data into a format that we can use it effectively. And having these columns out here by year doesn't really do it. Now, I've done this before, but you should really get used to the idea of putting these tools together, both the Transpose and the Crosstab. And the Transpose, as you can see from the little icon here and the picture on the icon, is you take data that's wide and then you want to make it very vertical. So when we take this, and the first thing we do is we transpose it. And we say, okay, we're going to keep the country over here, but all the other columns we're going to have sit in these rows. Now to do that, we now create, or the system creates, and it takes that gender, by the way, I think, yeah. So we keep the gender column up here as well. The only thing we want to flip is the years. So we've got this name and we've got this value, and then we want to take and we want to flip it back. Now, we don't flip it back with everything. What we do is we flip back and we say, okay, we're going to keep the country and we're going to keep the name, which in this case is actually year. And what do we want for column headers? We want the gender. So now we have 3 column headers where it's all females and males. And then the values come from the value column. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to do a little bit of cleanup. And so we call that year, we turn it into a fixed decimal. Then we're going to put a couple of columns out here to do our calculation for us. This is why you want this data in this format, so that you can go this divided by this, and males divided by this. And that's exactly what we do. We do a female percentage and a male percentage, where you can see over here where it's the females divided by all, and then we multiply it by 100 so that we're not looking at a 0.49. And that's our percentage. And we do the same thing with males. And then this third column is simply saying, hey, if the female percentage is higher than the male, then female, else males. And there you go. And we've got that flipped out over there. Now, the next thing we want to do is take a look at our questions. And you can see that some are talking about more men, more women, more men. And we filter it. Excuse me, I'm fighting off a little bit of a cold here. And we filter it and we say, okay, if the higher percentage equals females, then it comes out of here. If the higher, if it's not, if females isn't a higher percentage, then it's going to come out of the false. And so our first question up here is, what was the last year in which there were more men than women in Latin American countries? And so we come down here and we take a look, and we don't want predictions. We don't want forecasts. And so this challenge was put together prior to 2020. We don't have actual data. It was forecast at that point. So what was the latest year, the most recent year? And so we know everything coming out of this is all male. And then that's the true. And here we have it diverge just a little bit. And we say, what's the max year? Max year, and you can see, is 2015. And so we want to bring that back, and we join that here. And we say, okay, join that against any country that has a year of 2015. And you can see that there are 7 records here. And when you look at it now, these 7 records, it's 2015, and these are the years, these are the countries where the percentage is higher. But notice here, we've got one country where it's got only 16% women. So we can look at that and say that's likely bad data, especially since that's less than 50. So let's toss another one on here that says, hey, the male percentage has to be greater than 50, and we get it down to 6 records, and these are the countries. So that answers our question number 1. What is behind question number 2? In what year will the percentage of men in a Latin American country reach the lowest point, according to this data set? The lowest point. And so we could have done this a couple of different ways. I could have had all of this come out of here. In this case, I had the women higher. I do want to sort it here, and I want to sort it by female percent descending. That gives us the highest female percent. Highest female percent. And then we only take the one record, and we say, okay, El Salvador in 2030 is going to be the low water mark for the male percentage and the female percentage. Next, our question is there any chance that there will be more men than women by 2100? If so, in which Latin American country? So in this case, we want to say more men than women. So that's the false coming out of here in our true false. And we want it to be exactly, we want the year to be 2100. So what have we got here for males in 2100? And these are the 7 countries that are forecast to have a higher male population than female population in 2100. I am Mark Thompson, and this is Alteryx tutorials, and our challenge today was challenge number 243. If you like it, hit like, hit share, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, make a comment, let us know what you think. Love to hear from you. Thanks for joining. Till next time.